In 1972, a single helicopter changed the doctrine of every military on Earth. The AH-1 Cobra had already proven that a helicopter could kill a tank, but in Vietnam, flying low over the jungle with nothing but a door gun and a prayer, something more fundamental was demonstrated: that a helicopter could go where no fixed-wing aircraft could follow, survive in environments no tank could reach, and deliver firepower with a precision that artillery could only approximate. Every army on Earth watched Vietnam and drew the same conclusion. They needed attack helicopters. What they built over the next 50 years, across 7 distinct generations of capability, is what this video is about. Let's get into it. Level 1. The Armed Utility Helicopter. The UH-1 Iroquois with door guns. The Mi-8 HIP with rocket pods. The Bell 412 operated by a dozen smaller air forces with whatever weapons could be bolted to the hardpoints. These are not attack helicopters by design. They are transport and utility helicopters that were given weapons because the mission required it and a purpose-built platform wasn't available or affordable. The UH-1, the Huey, became the defining sound of Vietnam not because it was a weapon system, but because it was everywhere. Troop transport, medevac, command and control, resupply, close air support, the same airframe performing every function on the same battlefield, often on the same day. Weapons were added as an afterthought. A crew chief with an M60 machine gun mounted on a bungee cord in the door. Later, rocket pods and miniguns on stub wings. The Mi-8 HIP follows the same logic on the Soviet side. The world's most produced helicopter in history. In Afghanistan, in Syria, in Africa, the HIP remains the default armed rotary asset for air forces that cannot afford dedicated attack platforms. It is not precise. It is not survivable against modern air defense, but it is available. It is maintainable in austere conditions, and it is present in conflicts where presence is the primary requirement. The Armed Utility Helicopter is the level 1 of attack aviation, not because the platform is unsophisticated. The Mi-8 is a genuinely capable aircraft, but because the weapons integration was never the primary design intent. The helicopter was already there. The weapons came later. Level 2. The first-generation dedicated attack helicopter. The AH-1 Cobra and its international variants. The BO-105 with HOT missiles. The A-109 in its light attack configuration. Platforms designed from the beginning to carry weapons, not adapted to carry them afterward. The AH-1 Cobra represents a conceptual revolution that is easy to understate today. Before the Cobra, the idea of a helicopter designed specifically to kill things was theoretical. After the Cobra entered service in 1967, it was doctrine. Bell took the dynamic components of the UH-1, the engine, transmission, rotor system, and wrapped them in a new, narrow airframe optimized for a single purpose. The tandem cockpit reduced the frontal profile. The stub wings carried weapons. The nose turret carried guns. The pilot had nothing else to think about except finding targets and killing them. The Cobra's design philosophy, 2 crew, tandem seating, dedicated weapon systems, narrow profile, became the template for every attack helicopter built after it. The Apache, the Tiger, the Viper. All of them owe their fundamental architecture to the choices Bell made in 1965 when they drafted the original Cobra proposal. Level 3. The Mi-24 Hind, and everything it represented about how differently the Warsaw Pact approached the problem. Picture this. It is 1972. NATO is watching the Cobra proliferate through American forces and drawing conclusions about the future of anti-armor warfare. Moscow draws a different conclusion. Not a dedicated attack helicopter, a flying infantry fighting vehicle, something that can carry 8 soldiers and suppress and destroy simultaneously. Something so visually intimidating that its psychological impact is part of the operational calculus. The Soviets took the Western concept of the attack helicopter and added soldiers to it. In Afghanistan, the Hind became something else. Not a troop carrier, a gunship. The Mujahideen called it the Devil's Chariot. It flew low, fast, and often. It was nearly impossible to kill with small arms. Until the Stinger arrived. The introduction of man-portable surface-to-air missiles in 1986 changed what the Hind could do and where it could go. The lesson that every attack helicopter designer absorbed from Afghanistan was this: no matter how capable the platform, survivability against evolving ground-based threats determines operational utility. That lesson shapes every level above this one. If you're finding this useful, subscribe and hit the like button. Every week, I break down how complex systems actually work. Now back to it. Level 4. The second-generation dedicated attack helicopter. The AH-64 Apache. The Eurocopter Tiger. The Mi-28 Havoc. This is where attack helicopter design incorporated the lessons of the Cobra, the Hind, and Afghanistan into a new doctrine. Not just a weapons platform, a sensor platform that happens to carry weapons. The AH-64 Apache entered U.S. Army service in 1986. It was designed around a specific threat: Soviet tank formations in the Fulda Gap. The scenario was a Warsaw Pact armored assault through central Germany, and the Apache was the American answer to the question of how to kill hundreds of tanks quickly, at night, in European weather, before they reached the Rhine. The engineering decisions that produced the Apache all trace back to that scenario. The target acquisition and designation site, the pilot night vision sensor, the longbow fire control radar on later variants that can classify 256 targets simultaneously and prioritize them for engagement, the Hellfire missile that can be fired from behind cover using the radar alone, without the helicopter ever entering line of sight of the target. The Mi-28 Havoc is Russia's direct Apache equivalent. Never exported as widely, less combat-tested than the Apache, but designed with the same philosophical shift, from platform to sensor system, that defines this generation. Level 5. Network-integrated attack aviation. The AH-64 D and E Apache Longbow and Guardian variants, the Ka-52 Alligator, the Z-10 and Z-19 in China's integrated. An Apache with Longbow doesn't just find targets, it shares the targeting picture with other Apaches, with ground forces, with artillery, with command elements in real time. The helicopter becomes the eye of a system whose reach extends far beyond the rotorcraft itself. In Iraq and Afghanistan, the Apache operated in this networked role routinely, providing overwatch for ground forces, transmitting imagery to command elements, coordinating with fixed-wing aircraft on separate frequencies, while simultaneously engaging targets with Hellfire. The crew workload required to operate in this environment demanded a generation of training evolution. The Ka-52 Alligator represents a different design philosophy at this level. Coaxial rotors eliminating the tail rotor and its associated mechanical complexity. Ejection seats, one of the very few attack helicopters equipped with them, reflecting a Russian design philosophy that accepts higher probability of ground fire and designs for crew survival accordingly. Level 6. Stealth and low observable attack aviation. The AH-64 Comanche, the concept that never fully arrived, and what its cancellation reveals about where attack helicopter doctrine was heading. The AH-64 Comanche was the most advanced attack helicopter ever built. Designed in the 1980s, first flew in 1996, never entered production. The program was canceled in 2004 after $6.9 billion in development spending and 2 prototypes. The reason is instructive. The Comanche was designed around Cold War threat assumptions. A low observable, high-speed reconnaissance and light attack helicopter that could penetrate integrated air defense systems to find targets for Apaches operating behind it. The design was extraordinary. Faceted airframe reducing radar cross-section, retractable landing gear, internal weapons bays eliminating external radar returns, a rotor system with sound dampening characteristics. The engineers addressed every signature, radar, infrared, acoustic, with solutions that had never been combined in a single rotorcraft. The cancellation was operationally rational and historically significant. It demonstrated that even the most technically sophisticated weapon system is ultimately subordinate to the strategic context in which it must operate. Technology does not exist independently of doctrine, and doctrine responds to the actual threat, not the hypothetical one. Level 7. The final level. The future that is already arriving. Autonomous and optionally manned attack aviation. The FARA program, the SB-1 Defiant, and V-280 Valor as bridging platforms, and the unmanned wingman concept that is restructuring how attack helicopter doctrine will be written for the next 50 years. The U.S. Army's Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft Program, FARA, was designing a replacement for the AH-64 Kiowa that would operate at speeds and ranges beyond what any current attack helicopter achieves. The Bell 360 Invictus and the Sikorsky Raider X competed before program restructuring in 2024. Both demonstrated speed capabilities, approaching 250 miles per hour in level flight, but the more significant development is not speed. It is autonomy. The concept of an optionally manned attack platform, a helicopter that can fly missions without a crew when the threat environment makes crewed flight unacceptably risky, is already being tested. The transition from manned to optionally manned to fully autonomous is not a question of whether. It is a question of at what pace doctrine, technology, and institutional culture converge. The implications are significant. An unmanned attack helicopter changes the risk calculus of every mission. A commander who would hesitate to send a crewed aircraft into a high-threat environment will make different decisions when no crew is at risk. The technology changed every decade. The question never did. A door gunner on a Huey in 1968 and an autonomous attack platform in 2030 are solving the same problem. The distance between them, measured not in years but in what they ask a human being to risk, is the real story this video was always about. If this was useful, subscribe. I break down how complex systems actually work, not how the press release describes them. See you in the next one.